Hello, good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good whatever time of night or day it happens to be, wherever you happen to be. I am live, yes, thank you. Welcome to Republic News. I'm your hostess, Liviana. This is episode 10 of my Precinct show, and the episode title is Excelsior, which is the motto of the state of New York, and which was the personal motto of Stan Lee. Excelsior is a Latin word, the comparative form of excelsus, meaning elevated, lofty, or high. So Excelsior means loftier or higher, often translated as ever upward or still higher, in the sense of a motto. Tonight's show is dedicated, as you may well have guessed from the thumbnail and the background, to the memory of Stan Lee. As usual on my pre-show, my Precincts shows, I'll be going over some of the recent news, and of course the big news this week is the death of Stan Lee. Many of you will already have seen some reflections on Stan Lee in the 4 days since his passing, and I expect most, if not all of you, will already be aware that he has passed. Nevertheless, I'd like to say a few words about him. If there be any time when I've gone over the news, I'll try to drag some of my Discord server members into the stream, if any be in the antechamber. So then, let's get started, shall we? As usual, references will be added to the video description, so you can consult the articles in their entirety, since I will only be reading portions of most of the articles and summarizing a few others. The first item on my desk this evening is a shout back to the first item last week concerning the Green Party of the United States. According to preliminary reports, which were as yet unconfirmed at the time I prepared my remarks for last week's show, the Green Party lost ballot access in Ohio, Arizona, Indiana, and Utah, and failed to regain ballot access in Minnesota. In fact, however, the preliminary reports were incorrect. While the Green Party did fail to regain ballot access in Minnesota and lost ballot access in Ohio and Arizona, we did not lose ballot access in Indiana or Utah, but we did in Maryland. We also did, as initially reported, gain ballot access in Massachusetts. In addition, although as of last week's show, Laura Wells had 12.3% of votes counted by that time for her race for U.S. Representative from California's 13th Congressional District, she has fallen to 11.6% as of Wednesday evening. I haven't checked since then, may have gained a little more, may have lost a little more. I'm not sure if any votes are still being counted, but anyway. However, Rodolfo Cortes Barragan had only 22.1% of the votes counted for his race for U.S. Representative from California's 40th District, and additional ballots counted since then had him at up to 22.3% as of Wednesday evening. In even better news, Kenneth Mejia had only 25.8% of the votes counted for his race for U.S. Representative from California's 34th District last week at this time. But additional ballots counted since then have him now with 26.6% as of Wednesday evening, which, if I wanted to be a little sketchy, I could round up to 27%, but I'm not going to do that. So again, I haven't checked these since Wednesday evening, which is when I prepared these remarks. The total may have changed a little bit, but I don't expect it's going to change too much either way anymore. Also, of the 285 candidates who ran on the Green Party line in 2018, 20 were elected. This is a little more than 7% of the candidates who ran. While some might take this pessimistically, I say 7% of our candidates is better than 5%, and I also say Excelsior, ever upward. This brings me to my next story. Stan Lee, born Stanley Martin Lieber on the 28th of December 1922 in New York City, New York, known to fans as Stan the Man, passed away at the age of 95 on the 12th of November 2018 in Los Angeles, California. So I have a few articles I would like to look at concerning Stan Lee. The first of these comes from NPR, National Public Radio, and it is from the 12th. The title is A Marvel of a Man, Stan Lee Dead at 95. And again, the links to these articles will be included in the video description eventually, probably before the stream is over. So I'm going to read at least a little bit of this. American comic book writer, editor, publisher, and former president of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee, passed away today at the age of 95. Stan Lee gave us over 6 decades of work like The Incredible Hulk and The Amazing Spider-Man, superheroes we could identify with, characters that allowed us to suspend our disbelief because they reacted to bizarre situations like you or I might. In a 1998 interview, Lee told me, quote, "Before Marvel started, any superhero might be walking down the street and see a 12-foot tall monster coming toward him with purple skin and 8 arms, breathing fire, and the character would have said something like, 'Oh, there's a monster from another world, I better catch him before he destroys the city.' Now, of course, if one of our Marvel characters saw the same monster, I'd like to think Spider-Man would say, 'Who's that nut in the Halloween get-up? I wonder what he's up to, what he's advertising.'" End quote. And by the way, I should mention the author of the article is Beth Commando. Robert Scott, owner of Comic K's, a San Diego comic book store, says Lee put the human in superhuman. Scott says, quote, "He would talk about prejudice, racism. I mean, the X-Men, here was a group of people who were only trying to do good things and only trying to help, and they were constantly ostracized by being mutants. End quote. For Lee, having compelling, thought-provoking subject matter was critical to his business. Oh, crucial, sorry. I thought for a moment there was some typographical error, and then Stan Lee said, quote, "The person viewing the cartoon or reading the book should have something to think about, not just look at mindless pages of running around," end quote. And born Stanley Lieber in New York City in 1922, he took the pseudonym Stan Lee in order to save his real name for more literary pursuits, but those pursuits never came. Instead, Lee devoted more than 6 decades to the comics industry, co-creating Spider-Man, Black Panther, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Iron Man, and Daredevil. In 1970, he successfully challenged the restrictive Comics Code Authority with a story about drug abuse in Spider-Man. I think that was 1979, actually, but anyway. But Lee also injected a sense of self-doubt in his characters. That was the revolution that Stan Lee did, says David Goyer, who adapted the Marvel character Blade for the screen. Quote, "He was the first one to create, with Spider-Man, superheroes who doubted themselves, who were tormented, who were unhappy," end quote. The increased complexity of Marvel's characters broadened their appeal to older audiences. Lee, always a savvy businessman, spearheaded the expansion of Marvel Comics from a division within a publishing house to a large multimedia corporation. And this goes on for some time, and it's a pretty interesting article. A little bit longer, maybe a few more paragraphs. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going to read it all, but the next article I have is actually, I'm not going to read it because it's a video that was posted to the Marvel subreddit. Stan Lee talks about the fans and how much they meant to him. I will include a link to that in the video description so you can go and listen to what Mr. Lee had to say about us, his fans. It's a very... it was something he recorded that was recorded near the end of his life, and it's somewhat touching. So the next article I have is, why did Stan Lee say Excelsior at the end of his cameo in Avengers Age of Ultron? What's the story behind it? It started back in the 60s when Stan the Man Lee started his monthly column, Stan's Soapbox, in Marvel's Bullpen Bulletins. Lee ended every column with the catchphrase, Excelsior. Since then, it has become his trademark motto. Considering the showman that he is, he just likes to sign off with the catchphrase. Now, this is from, what is this from? This is from Quora. Oh, yes, this is from Quora, and it was published on in 2015. So the person who is answering it is not really sure what name is being used. Perhaps I'll find it at the bottom. Yeah, I don't really see. Not really sure who gave this answer. It just says Quora user heart watching movies. Maybe watching movies is the name? I don't know. Anyway, I don't use Quora enough to really know how it works, unfortunately. So anyway, here's more directly from the horse's mouth. And this is a quote from Stan Lee Shouts Excelsior. That is from IO9. Someone has asked him, where did your catchphrase Excelsior come from? And Stan replies, quote, I used to have a lot of expressions that I would end my comic book columns with. Hang loose, face front, nuff said, and I found that the competition was always imitating them and using them, so I said I'm going to get one expression that they're not going to know what it means and they won't know how to spell it, and that's where Excelsior came from, and they never did take up on it, thank goodness. End quote. And it goes on to explain the word Excelsior comes from the Latin and means ever upward. Excelsior is also the official motto of the state of New York. Lee is from New York, so that's probably why he picked it as his signature catchphrase. Now, this was also the name of his autobiography, Excelsior, The Amazing Life of Stan Lee, by Stan Lee and George Mayer. And that's really all that's in that particular Quora answer. Again, there will be a link if you want to go and check it out later. And the next one is the meaning of Excelsior, the Latin word Marvel legend. Stan Lee made his motto from Quartzy. So this says, let me see here. This is by Adam Epstein, published on November the 12th. The Latin word Stan Lee made his life motto, Excelsior. Stan Lee, the legendary Marvel writer and publisher who helped created, okay, again, people, editors, do your fucking jobs, who helped create countless superheroes, has died. He was 95. Fans, friends, and colleagues paid tribute November 12th to the comics icon on social media with one word, Excelsior. Less than an hour after news of Lee's death broke, the word was trending globally on Twitter. And it gives a few examples of tweets. And it refers to the quote that I just gave you from Quora that was originally from IO9. That was published in 2007, the IO9 article where he talked about wanting the unique word to himself that his rivals at the time wouldn't be tempted to copy. But what started as a clever sign-off to thwart his competition in the 1960s quickly became an optimistic mantra the writer would exhibit throughout his life and career for many decades after, or maybe it was part of him all along. Lee, a singular figure in American entertainment who was responsible for much of the Marvel superhero universe we know today, has demonstrated the meaning of Excelsior throughout his life. He was renowned for his relentless imagination. He created or co-created hundreds of fully fleshed characters, pioneering spirit, and a heroic work ethic. The writer had worked well into his 90s, and in the last decade alone he started an imprint for kids, published a graphic novel, and was reportedly writing a superhero rock opera. And of course, he was always game for a cameo appearance in the Marvel movies based on his creations. He was also famous for being available and excited to talk with fans at conventions and other comic book events. You'll likely notice many tributes in the next few days recognizing Lee's unyielding, positive energy, a trait that by all accounts was just as constant in his later years as it was when he was an upstart writer for Captain America in 1940. For Lee, Excelsior wasn't just a term to remember him by, it was his nature, creating, striving, ever upward. So yeah, I will certainly include a link to that in the video description as well. Now, I'm obviously not going to read this because it's a video, but there is a guy called, or a girl or a guy, I'm not sure, called MJ, EMJAY, at Twitter, who sent out a tweet and said, "This is what kind of man we lost today." And it is a video of Stan talking himself about racism and sexism and hatred and so forth. And I'm going to include a link to this video in the video description here as well, because I really think everyone ought to check it out. And this in Stan's own words, it really ought to shut the screeching neurotics up who keep accusing him of being a racist and a sexist. But I won't be holding my breath, unfortunately. There is also a shitty clickbait article at Vox hinting in its title that it will expose something dark about Stan Lee's legacy, but which admits in the body of its text that Stan was not responsible for what the reporter it's raging about did, that Stan even tried to set the record straight to the reporter, but the reporter chose to ignore people like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko in order to focus on Stan Lee. Like I say, I'm not going to, the article title is The Darker Side of Stan Lee's Legacy, and it's at Vox, and it just basically says, honoring Stan Lee's memory also means honoring the people he worked with. Okay, that's great. There's nothing dark about Stan's legacy. It doesn't reveal anything damning or worthy of condemnation or anything of the sort. It kind of makes out that he was, business savvy, basically. I'm not going to be reading from this article during this show, and I'm not going to dignify this kind of yellow journalism with a link in the video description. If you'd be curious, you can Google the title I've given. Alright, now moving on. Before I do, though, let me look in and see if anybody is out there with any questions or anything. Looks like my stream is buffering. I see Ryan was here. Not sure if you're still here, Ryan, but if you are, hi. I haven't been paying attention to the stream health or anything, so I'm not sure if I've lost connection or if the stream went down for a moment, but I do see that it is buffering. The health of the stream at the moment is green, so that means good. So I'm not sure why it would still be buffering. But anyway, I'm going to go back to the next story. Oh, hi. Hi, Q-rated. Thank you. Alright, so I can't see who's out there, unfortunately, because it's telling me only one person is watching now, and I know that I am watching. So, okay, now it says 2 watching. No, now it's gone back to 1. I don't know what the hell. I don't know if anybody's out there or not, but anyway, hopefully someone is, and if not, then at least maybe somebody will watch later. Last week's stream, I had 25 views of the original, and then I've had 23 views of the re-upload after I cleaned up the video and cut out the beginning audio echoes and feedback and shit, and cut off the last little tail bit and stuck in the copyright notice and fair use notice. But so that's not too bad. It's almost 50 people have seen that. Assuming that the 23 who watched the re-upload weren't the same 25 who watched the original stream. And I know at least a couple of them were. But anyway, yes, so my next article, the next story I have for you, comes from Advocate, The Advocate, and it says, Bohemian Rhapsody censored for queer content in Malaysia. This is by Daniel Reynolds, published on the 13th. And it says, audience members for Bohemian Rhapsody in Malaysia will reportedly see an edited, straight-washed version of the film. Censors in the Asian nation, where sex between members of the same gender is illegal, have cut 24 minutes from the 134-minute Freddie Mercury biopic, which include important queer moments in the bisexual singer's life, reports Malay Mail, a Kuala Lumpur-based newspaper. The deleted scenes include a recreation of the Queen music video for I Want to Break Free, which shows the band members in drag. The scene in which Mercury comes out as bisexual to his partner, Mary Austin, has also been excised. The minimum age to see the film has also been raised in Malaysia. Viewers must be at least 18, while in the United States, the film is rated PG-13. In addition to the problematic straightwashing, viewers have complained on social media that the edited version is nonsensical. One user wrote, quote, disclaimer for watching Bohemian Rhapsody in Malaysia. They cut out all the gay scenes, thus leaving out huge plot holes, end quote. And he goes on to say, I watched it in both Singapore and Malaysia and realize that you won't fully understand if you watch it in Malaysia. Recommended to watch someplace else. So there is a government-led witch hunt of LGBTQ people in Malaysia, which has seen rising intolerance since the election of a new national government. In the past year, the country has made headlines for the sentencing of two women to caning for having sex with each other, a brutal attack on a transgender woman, and a raid on a gay nightclub. The unedited version of Bohemian Rhapsody already stands accused of not devoting enough time to Mercury's queerness or his struggle with HIV, which ultimately led to his death. The latter is alluded to at the end of the film, although critics have noted that the timing of his diagnosis is anachronistic. Regarding the film, Rami Malek as Mercury has been a box office success, earning more than $50 million in North America for its opening weekend. To date, it has grossed more than $285 million worldwide. So, I actually read the entirety of that article, but I will include a link to that as well in the video description, so you can go and check it out. I think there's a video in the article as well that you might want to check out. Hi Ryan, I see you have maybe come back, I don't know. It keeps going back and forth between 1 and 2 people watching on my notifications. So I don't know but let me go on to the next article then. This is from The Guardian, or The Groudian, as some people call it, in reference to the old days when it used to include a lot of typographical errors. This is Zuckerberg. I didn't know of Facebook ties to firm that attacked George Soros. CEO says he learned about relationship with PR company after it was reported in New York Times. This is written by Julia Carey Wong in San Francisco. It was published on Thursday, the 15th, yesterday. So, The article says, Mark Zuckerberg defended the leadership of Facebook on Thursday, claiming ignorance of the company's relationship with a political consultancy that used an anti-Semitic narrative to undermine critics. A defensive Zuckerberg said on a conference call with reporters that was ostensibly about Facebook's content moderation practices, quote, "Look, I learned about this reading in the New York Times yesterday. As soon as I learned about this, I talked to our team and we're no longer working with this firm," end quote. Zuckerberg went on to repeat part of the messaging of the PR firm, which is that the prominent philanthropist George Soros, who is Jewish, is pulling the strings of not-for-profit groups that have criticized Facebook, some of them under the banner of a campaign called Freedom from Facebook. Let's see here. Zuckerberg said, quote, "The bottom line is the intention was not to attack an individual, but to demonstrate that a group that was presenting itself as a grassroots effort was in fact funded by, was not in fact a spontaneous grassroots effort. I have tremendous respect for George Soros," end quote. It goes on. And I don't think it makes any mention whatsoever of the Atlantic Council, with which Facebook has also been partnered. Now, the Atlantic Council is a neoconservative think tank kind of group. Its board of directors includes people like Henry Kissinger, a former director of the CIA, a former director of the NSA, let's see who else is on it. I guess Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, which are both part of the military-industrial complex. And so there have been accusations that some of Facebook's censorship of voices on its platform were motivated by the Atlantic Council because a number of these voices which have been shut down have been anti-war activists. And people trying to advocate for police accountability and so forth. So that's kind of interesting. And I don't see anything in this article about the Atlantic Council. I certainly wouldn't expect anything from, say, the New York Times. Calling out Facebook for partnering with the Atlantic Council, because the New York Times is a pro-establishment rag. It's no longer the standard of journalism that it used to be. So I would seriously be surprised to find any mainstream media in the United States calling Facebook out for partnering with the Atlantic Council. Because, since the Telecommunications Act of 1996, media in the United States has been consolidated more and more to the point that, as I've often pointed out in the past, and I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but seriously, people need to come to terms with this reality. We now have 5 or 6 mega corporations owning and controlling over 90% of the media in the United States. And these corporate outlets, especially those connected with the military-industrial complex, will naturally be expected to have some vested interests in promoting the military-industrial complex, many of which, like even MSNBC, which everybody thinks is some kind of leftist outlet. No, it's a Democrat Party outlet. There's nothing leftist about it. They fired Phil Donahue for criticizing the Iraq War, for example. They get a lot of their advertising revenue from military-industrial complex corporations. Yeah. So, let me see. Anybody out here now? I see Bobby's out there. Yeah. CIA found Saudi prince ordered the death of the journalist. That, I think probably everybody knew that, even if they didn't want to admit it. the pseudo-feminists, the what we call, some people have called them, now the term that they came up with for themselves some time ago was trans-exclusionary radical feminists, but they don't like that anymore, even though they themselves came up with it, and they claim that it's a slur. So some people have come up with a new term for them. It is feminism appropriating reactionary transphobe, or FART, instead of TERF. I call them pseudo-feminists and science denialists and fundamentalists because that's what they are. And they get all bent out of shape when I point out that they're denying science. Oh, but it's biology, it's biology. Yeah, it's biology, dumbass, but biology isn't just about chromosomes. Chromosomal sex is biological. So is gender identity. There is ample evidence from hard science, neurology, autopsies, all kinds of stuff that demonstrates that there is such a thing as brain gender, which is what is also known to some people as gender identity, and ample evidence that gender identity or brain gender doesn't always correspond with chromosomal sex. Now, it's a rather rare thing, but it's not quite as rare as something like, say, Klinefelter syndrome or non-Klinefelter XXY, which is an intersex or two intersex conditions, or one depending on who you're talking to, in which a person is born with XXY chromosomes. So, I mean, that's pretty rare. But anyway, yeah, well, ain't it shocking? That feminists, and I really don't regard these people as feminists. Some people have called them fourth wave feminists, but my view is that they're, the people that they call anti-feminists, who are second wave feminists, who actually went out in the streets in the 60s and 70s and did fight for equality and liberation, they call those people anti-feminists, and I'm like, yeah, no, you guys are the anti-feminists, because a lot of the shit that you're advocating for would undo progress, which was hard won by feminists in the 60s and 70s. And don't get me started on Anita Sarkeesian. I mean, I will go for quite a while bitching about her stupidity. But anyway, I regard these people as neo-Puritans more than anything else. My friend Nick, Wizard of Cause, calls them outrage mongers, is a term that I like to use as well. And regressives is another term that I like to use for them, since they've tried to co-opt the name progressive for themselves, and there's nothing progressive about them at all. But anyway, yeah. Good to see you guys out here watching. I'm going to continue with my next story, which is, let me see, what the hell is my next story, because I'm not sure. Let me see here. Okay, I've got that, and I'll come back to that here in a moment. And okay, so the next article that I have is, I'm not actually going to read this one because it's just very amusing, but so apparently some 24-year-old guy walked into a police station in Pensacola, Florida, and asked to go to jail for downloading child porn, which he claimed he downloaded from the dark web. I mean, at least he was honest enough to go turn himself in, but it's kind of weird. Florida's a weird fucking place. Okay, so we got another article here. This one comes from Reuters. I'm not going to link the one about the Pensacola dude either, because it was just something that I saw. My boyfriend called it to my attention and was laughing about it, and I was like, huh. Florida, Anyway, so this next article comes from Reuters. It's by Idris Ali and Mike Stone, and it was published on yes, the 15th, yesterday. Pentagon fails its first ever audit, official says. The Pentagon has failed what is being called its first ever comprehensive audit, a senior official said on Thursday, finding U.S. Defense Department accounting discrepancies that could take years to resolve. Let's see. Results of the inspection conducted by some 1,200 auditors and examining financial accounting on a wide range of spending, including on weapons systems, military personnel, and property, were expected to be completed later in the day. Let's see here. Deputy Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan told reporters, quote, "We failed the audit, but we never expected to pass it," end quote, adding that the findings showed the need for greater discipline in financial matters within the Pentagon. You think? Really? I mean, how much did they lose? Nobody seems to know where it went. And oh my goodness, yes. So this article goes on a little bit longer, and yeah, again, I'm going to not read all of it, but it's pretty interesting, I think. Let me grab this link here again, because I forgot to include this in the video description notes, and I think I was gonna, let me see, where is this? Oh yes, I've got that. Okay, so let me try and put this in here. So I kind of generally try to prepare the video description notes as I go through this if I don't already have them ready. I apologize for the delay, but I think you would like to see at least some of these links relatively soon, if not during the show, then shortly after it's over. So I usually try to get them included in the video description before I end the stream. That doesn't always work out. Like last week, the video description was too long for the stream. I mean, all the links and stuff that I had included were just a little too much for YouTube to handle, I guess, which is a bit strange, but hey, whatever. You know, they do have a character limit, unfortunately. Now you know why it took me so long to get on Twitter. I don't like character limits at all. But, so, anyway. So I got a couple of things to add to this video description here. It's got the Bohemian Rhapsody, got that one, just got the Zuckerberg one, and now this one, which I just read, is the Reuters article. Pentagon fails its first ever audit, official says. And yeah, so in the meantime, anybody out there got any comments or questions? I do take questions, and sometimes I even answer them, right? Let's see here. Okay, so this Pentagon article link, and let me see. Okay, copy, and what is that? I didn't need to do that. Okay, and link it here instead. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, anybody got any comments or questions on any of the news so far? Yeah, I don't think they're Marxist either, but yeah, I mean, Marxism, like all types of socialism, is concerned with achieving economic goals, and you can't actualize any leftist goals if you have a focus on identity politics, because identity politics is divisive, and in order to actualize any leftist goals, you need solidarity. I did a video about this a while back. I think it was in April, called Intersectionality. I think it was called Solidarity versus Intersectionality. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't watched it. I did another thing about it recently, like in October, I guess. might have been the beginning of this month, but I think it was late October, called More Equal, ? Where I talked a little bit about it again. And there is a link from that one back to the earlier video in solidarity versus intersectionality. So if you don't want to go scroll back through all my videos to April or whenever looking for that one, you can find it more easily by just going to the More Equal video. So then, all right. Let's see. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff about China trying to create an artificial moon, a fake moon, and now trying to create an artificial sun. Matt Jarbo talked about the fake moon a couple weeks ago, I guess. So there is also apparently now this new attempt to create a fusion reactor, which they are calling an artificial sun. Let me break open one of these articles and see. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about the artificial moon or the fake moon or whatever much, except insofar as it will be mentioned in some of these articles. Because they did. I mean, like, one of the articles is even called, After Fake Moon, China Trying to Create an Artificial Sun, which I believe is the next article I have up. Yes. So this is from the Economic Times. No, I don't want your notifications. Thank you. No. Said no, 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 no. Get out. Thank you. All right. Yeah, from the Economic Times. This is from the 15th, also yesterday. It says it's originally from ET Online, which I'm guessing... Oh, no, that's Economic Times, of course. Okay, sorry. I was thinking Entertainment Tonight for a moment there, but no. I don't see an author's name, but maybe it's down at the bottom. It says, China is reportedly working on an artificial sun in a bid to create an alternative source of power on Earth. As per reports, China's Hefel Institute of Physical Sciences is working on an Earth-based sun simulator, which basically is a fusion reactor. What's surprising is that the scientists working there have now claimed to have produced temperatures of 100 million degrees Celsius in the simulator, much more than 15 million degrees Celsius temperature of the sun's core. Now, I don't know what these Celsius things mean. I know that water freezes at, what? This is actually from Economic Times, is apparently a subsidiary of India Times. Anyway, I know that water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and boils at 100 degrees Celsius, but anything beyond that, I've got no clue. We still use the Fahrenheit thing here in the United States, and a lot of people call that the imperial system, but we always called it the English system. And the English are like, oh, we call it the imperial system. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah. We call it the English system. So anyway, in fusion reaction, two nuclei were combined, unlike in the fission reaction used in current nuclear reactors that basically splits an atom. The fusion reactors would create more power while producing less dangerous waste. However, for nuclear fusion, very high initial temperature is needed. Scientists are hoping that at 100 million degrees Celsius, they would be able to start a fusion reaction. However, they need to handle that much of a high temperature for an extended period of time to make it a practical source of energy. Earlier, it was reported that the country is planning to create a fake moon by 2020 to replace street lamps and lower electricity costs in urban areas. And someone... I don't remember, it might have been Matt Jarbo himself in his video talking about this, or it might have been someone in the comments section there had said, oh great, we've already killed off most of the day-dwelling species, now we get to kill off the nocturnal ones as well. Because, yeah, there is such a thing as light pollution, which is one of the reasons that cities are now turning to making street lights that shine down instead of up, so it doesn't fuck with migratory birds and migratory birds, if you will, or bats or the like, which get confused by lights shining up into the sky. So yeah, let me add this one as well to the video description, so that you can check that out when you get when I get the video description updated with all these links. So what the hell is that? Where did it go? What did I click? Yeah, so there's that. And yeah, so I also have another article, at least one more article about it here, which I already have open. Let me see. This one is from, it looks like ABC, but I'm guessing this must be Australian Broadcasting Company, because it's certainly not the ABC American Broadcasting Corporation logo. It says it's by Jack Kilbride and Beng Xiao, updated Thursday at 12:22 a.m. Somewhere. China's artificial sun reaches 100 million degrees Celsius, marking milestones for nuclear fusion. There's a video that goes with this one as well, so yes, again, it might be something you'd like to look at. I didn't watch the video, but I have looked at the article. So let me see here. I'll go ahead and put this link also in there before I actually read it, so I don't forget and have to come back momentarily. Okay. So it says, Chinese nuclear scientists have reached an important milestone in the global quest to harness energy from nuclear fusion, a process that occurs naturally in the sun. The team of scientists from China's Institute of Plasma Physics announced this week that plasma in their experimental advanced superconducting tokamak, or EAST, dubbed the artificial sun, reached a whopping 100 million degrees Celsius temperature required to maintain a fusion reaction that produces more power than it takes to run. I don't know about them apples. To put that in perspective, the temperature at the core of the sun is said to be about 15 million degrees Celsius, making the plasma in China's artificial sun more than 6 times hotter than the original. This news comes after China shocked the science community last month with plans to launch an artificial moon bright enough to replace city streetlights by 2020. Now, there is a link there to an article about the artificial moon as well, which is also from the same news outlet. So if you check this particular article out, you can see a link to the discussion about the artificial or the fake moon, or whatever they're calling it. And I'm going to include a link to Mundane Matt's video as well here, so you can go and check that out if you like. It was pretty interesting, I thought. This article goes on a little bit longer, and there are several other sidebar links and so forth, talking about fusion versus fission, and a bunch of photographs and all kinds of nifty stuff. It's actually a fairly long article by the standards of today's news reporting. I mean, you don't usually see something this long unless you're at some place like Rolling Stone, for example, which actually goes quite a bit longer, especially if you're reading someone like Matt Taibbi, who is a brilliant journalist and does allow some of his biases to get in the way occasionally. But oh no, I'm sorry, this wasn't from Mundane Matt. This was from Ron Placone. Yeah, Ron did a video very recently called China to Make a Fake Moon. That was, I think it was part of his Get Your News On with Ron live podcast. And he kind of, like a lot of other people do when he does a live stream, he will come back and cut it down and take portions of it and re-release them as individual videos where they are more topical instead of just a news show talking about various things. My boyfriend suggested that I should do that as well, but wow, you know, editing video is a real pain. So I probably won't be doing that anytime soon, but you know, there is a possibility at some point in the future that I might do that. So like last week, for example, I did actually make the original stream unlisted. So I mean, it's still there. If you have the original link, you can go and watch it. But all I did was I took that video, I cut out the beginning because I had been delayed starting, and so I was a little bit scatterbrained at the beginning and wasn't really sure what the hell was going on. I forgot to mute the live stream itself, so I was getting feedback and echo from that, and I hadn't even put on my earbuds at the beginning, so you know, I was reverbing through my own microphone and speakers, and it kind of went on for about 5 minutes before I remembered to put the earbuds in pretty quickly, but then I was still sitting there looking at it going, I was mostly confused about the fact that the visual was all garbled up, and you know, people that were watching it live didn't see that. They could see the background image I had set up, but for me it was all garbled. And then after it finished processing, there was about 10 minutes at the end that had been lost, and the visuals were just as garbled in the final product as they were for me when I was watching it during the actual live stream. So I always record my streams locally on my computer at the same time I'm streaming them in case of something like that. And so in this case, what I did was I took the local video, I cut out the beginning with all the weird noise shit, and I cut off a little bit of the end, but it wasn't anything that you would have heard anyway, because like the last 10 minutes of the actual video were gone. I think the last 10 minutes or so of the actual video were gone, didn't make it through the processing process. And the final one that I did upload actually has the visual intact, so there's no garbled, weird-looking crap all over the place. Anyway, I'm going to include a link to Ron's video as well. Ron is a good guy. He is one of the people who works with Jimmy Dore on the Jimmy Dore Show. The other general regular on Jimmy's show is Steph Zamorano, which is Jimmy's wife. So anyway, let's see. So okay. This one is kind of funny. This next article. This is also an article that my boyfriend called to my attention, and it is again from The Guardian. This one, shit. Yeah. Oh, mercy. Yeah, this one is from The Guardian. It's something my boyfriend called to my attention yesterday, maybe? Maybe the day before. It's from the 14th of November anyway, so it had to have been yesterday or Wednesday. And it's by Justin McCurry and Agencies. The article title is System Error. Japan Cybersecurity Minister admits he has never used a computer. What? No, really. Yoshitaka Sakurada also seemed confused by the concept of a USB drive when asked in Parliament. A Japanese minister in charge of cybersecurity has... hold up, here I got some lag going on. A Japanese minister in charge of cybersecurity has provoked astonishment by admitting he has never used a computer in his professional life and appearing confused by the concept of a USB drive. Yoshitaka Sakurada, 68, is the deputy chief of the government's Cybersecurity Strategy Office and also the minister in charge of the Olympic and Paralympic Games that Tokyo will host in 2020. In Parliament on Wednesday, however, he admitted he doesn't use computers. He said in response to an opposition question in a lower house session, quote, "Since the age of 25, I have instructed my employees and secretaries, so I don't use computers myself," end quote. He also appeared confused by the question when asked about whether USB drives were in use at the Japanese nuclear facilities. His comments were met with incredulity by opposition lawmakers. Opposition lawmaker Masato Imai said, quote, "It's unbelievable that someone who has not touched computers is responsible for cybersecurity policies," end quote. And his comments provoked a firestorm online. One Twitter user wrote, quote, "Doesn't he feel ashamed?" end quote. Today any company president uses a PC. He doesn't even know what a USB is. Holy cow. Another joke that perhaps Sakurada was simply engaged in his own kind of cybersecurity. Quote, "If a hacker targets this minister Sakurada, they wouldn't be able to steal any information. Indeed, it might be the strongest kind of security," end quote. Anyway, this goes on. It says the guy has been in office just over a month after being appointed in a cabinet reshuffle following Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's re-election as head of his political party. Anyway, the article goes on, so this one's pretty funny. I'm going to include a link to this in the video description. Goodness gracious. Oh my. This is about as ridiculous as some of the people trying to make legislation about firearms who are too terrified to even go near a firearm, so they know nothing about them. God. Oh my God. Yeah, so anyway. What the fuck is... Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Wow. Sheesh. Let me get that there. I'm going to go ahead and do something here real quick to make the excess stupidity going on in one of my browsers stop. Yeah, this will work right here, I think, maybe. Maybe. And I'm going to go ahead and include this link here in the notes for the video description. And this should actually allow me to... Oh yeah, there we go. Alright. So yeah, let me go ahead and do this real quick. Yeah. Alright, so that should take care of that problem, or challenge, or whatever. And... God, this is just unbelievable. But, you know... politics, man. Bureaucrats. Okay, so let's see here what else we've got on the agenda for this evening. Of course, some of you may have heard already that in Georgia, there are protesters demanding to count every vote, and they have been arrested as the governor's race remains unsettled. Someone, I think it was maybe Lee Camp on Twitter today, made a comment about how it's really strange how it's illegal to demand that every vote be counted, but perfectly legal to rig primaries and general elections and stuff ballots and suppress voters and not include power cords for the voting machines and so forth and so on. This article comes to us from NBC News, called Protesters Demanding Count Every Vote Arrested in Georgia as Governor's Race Remains Unsettled. And it is, it is by Alan Smith. It was published on the 13th. Let's see here. What is this business here? I don't know. Something's kind of weird about this. I don't know. I'll have to mess around with that particular link. But I'll get it to you. I'm not really sure what the heck that is. That's weird. I don't know why that's there. Yeah, I'm going to take that out of there. That's what I'm going to do. Exactly. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay then. I got it. Sorry. Multiple people, including Democratic State Senator Nikema Williams, were arrested Tuesday during a protest at Georgia's Capitol building in Atlanta, where chants of "count every vote" broke out among demonstrators, law enforcement said. Protesters were calling for the uncounted ballots from last week's midterm election to be tallied, as the gubernatorial race between Republican Brian Kemp and Democrat Stacey Abrams remains too close to call. Kemp holds a lead over Abrams of less than 58,000 votes as of Tuesday. There is some video at this article, so again, if you want to check that out, the link will be in the video description. I'm not going to read it all. Let's see here. And so this one is pretty interesting for all of us tech nerds. This is from Tech News. And it says, a Facebook filed a patent to use your family photos to target ads. This is by Saravana, published on the 16th, this morning. Facebook has filed application on May 10th that would identify elements of photographs to make it easier to target families with ads by analyzing the photos they post. With this application, Facebook target family members with ads based on images and captions posted to Facebook, as well as your device information like shared IP addresses. The algorithm, titled Predicting Household Demographics Based on Image Data, was originally filed May 10, 2017, and made public today. The new algorithm would cross-reference details from photographs with descriptions, tags, the poster's IP address, the list of Facebook users using that same address, and a few other details. Experts say the algorithm in the new patent could involve more sophisticated level of data mining than we think. The algorithm would use facial recognition and learning models trained to understand text to help Facebook better understand whom you live with and interact with most. With this, Facebook could guess how many kids you have in your family, even when they are not in Facebook. In one example, Facebook describes a male user who posts multiple pictures of two female subjects who appear repeatedly in either pictures he posts or pictures friends tag him in. One of them is a picture of a single young girl with the description, "My angel." The system could deduce that there are 3 people in his household, 1 male and 2 female, and that the female members are probably his wife and daughter, end quote. So, I mean, they need a program to deduce this? Really? Hey man, I can figure this out for you, Mark Zuckerberg. Give me a job. I could use some money. Seriously, I mean, I can tell you this. This is simple. This is just a process of deduction and elimination. I mean, my God, this is not some fucking wonderful, sophisticated, this is just... Anyway. So, yeah. Well, yeah. Let me see. I'm gonna... see, you're going to toss that link in there as well. And I think I'm probably going to be Let's see. Yeah, probably not going to do too many more articles, so I can hopefully get some people in here if there be any of my people in the antechamber. Because last week we didn't have a lot of time, and this week I didn't really grab a lot of different news articles. I do have a few more, some of which I may or may not actually read. Yes, this one here is certainly interesting. Yeah, I've got a couple more articles, and then I will check and see if anybody wants to hop in. I see Union Aerospace is in there at the moment, so that's, yeah, I will bring him in. But first, we have a look again into the live chat here. Let's see. Yep. You know, we've been over this before, I think, Bobby, and I disagree with that. It's not the same thing. Tactics don't make for ideology, Ryan. So, I mean, there are Antifa and fascists, real fascists, and the wannabe little soy boys with, who live in there. Anyway, there are people of widely diverse perspectives ideologically in terms of economics and politics and social matters and all kinds of stuff who share the same tactics. It doesn't mean they're the same. You can't very well call the little brown shirt wannabes or the actual brown shirts Marxists just because they share some tactics with the by any means necessary and black bloc groups. Sorry, that's not really, yeah. And yeah, Matt is still around. Mundane Matt is still around, and he flagged like 3 people, I guess. And I'm not going to blame him for that, because these are people who fucked with him for like 7 months before he finally reacted to them. So, I mean, they doxed him. There is some hint of them having something to do with the theft of his girlfriend's car, abandoning it a block away. What the hell? Who does that? If they wanted to steal the car, they're not going to abandon it a block away from the house. That seems like it was something, a warning to say, we know who you are, where you live, who the people you care about are, and we can hurt you. So fuck off and leave us alone. And this is a thing that you see a lot with that particular group of people, alt-right. They pretend to be outraged over someone else doing something, whether that person actually did it or not. Like as in the case of Kraut, they accused him of running a doxing server when it was never anything of the sort, but they themselves were running a doxing server, yeah. And you've got even one of them that I don't even know what word would be insulting enough to describe him, but you've got that one dumbass, Millennial Woes, who suggested that they should start a doxing network, and yeah, it was going to be controversial and all this other kind of shit, but we could do this, and we have the power to, yeah, you can watch that video. I've got a mirror of it on my channel, in fact. The alt-right are doxers in their own words. Check that out. And yeah, Millennial Woes, if you are listening or someone calls this to your attention, fuck you, man. I will happily own your ass any day of the week with scientific fact. You think you're white? Aren't you from Scotland? Where 87% of the bulk of the genetic material comes from the pre-Indo-European inhabitants of the British Isles. where you live in the lowlands, so you're Germanic. Maybe you're white then. But white is Caucasian. And the Caucasians came into Europe out of the Central Eurasian steppes and the Caucasus mountain region, bringing with them the Indo-European languages. People of the British Isles, the insular Celts, are more closely related to the Basques than they are to the Indo-Europeans. Now, they speak an Indo-European language, certainly, whether it be Welsh or Cornish or Gaelic or Manx or Irish, yeah. But the language isn't genetic. Their genes are something else. So you're pre-Indo-European, pre-Caucasian, not white. I don't care what your pigmentation is, you dumb bastard. I mean, I swear to the gods, just read somebody like Barry Cunliffe or oh hell, what's that guy's name? I think Barry Cunliffe has passed away now, but let me see. The other guy is Stephen Oppenheimer, yeah. These DNA studies done in the past 20 years or so have given the lie to a lot of the old myths, legends, and superstitions. So, I mean, the Book of the Taking of Ireland, yeah, that didn't really happen like that. Even T.F. O'Reilly's Early Irish History and Mythology. No, there were not a series of invasions or colonizations or migrations, really, until the time of the Roman conquest. And the Romans only managed to take over what is today England, basically. They couldn't take over the land of the Picts. They didn't even try to take over the land, the Irish island, Ireland. They didn't even try to take over Ireland. And it wasn't until after they left that you had the Germanic peoples moving in, the Frisians, Angles, Saxons, and Utes. And then, of course, you get a few Danes and Norse who take over a portion of northeastern England, the Danelaw. And then you've got William the Bastard, who comes in from Normandy and conquers England. AD 1066, Battle of Hastings, yada yada yada. But in Cornwall and Wales and Scotland and Ireland, the bulk of the genetic material is pre-Indo-European, pre-Caucasian, pre-white. White as a term pertaining to a so-called race? What does it even mean? If you're going to say it's about genetics, then you have to exclude the insular Celts. And you have to include the people of northern India, the people of Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran. So if you're going to say that it's about pigmentation, then you have to exclude people like the Greeks and the Italians, because they're, I mean, the southern Italians at least, a little bit darker than your lily white ass. Of course, you don't get a lot of sun, do you? Neither do I. If I did, I'd look like I were Hispanic because of the amount of Native American ancestry I have. But anyway. You think it's about culture? What culture is white? Christianity? Christianity comes from the Middle East, Haas. Anyway, I'm digressing into poking at an idiot, and I don't need to do that. Oh yes, I have this next article I wanted to look at. This one was also called to my attention by my boyfriend. It was published this morning, early. It is from Channel News Asia, and it says Khmer Rouge leaders to face genocide verdict for first time. Yeah. I don't see who wrote this article. Again, this might be one at the bottom telling me who wrote it. But anyway. Yeah. So, two senior leaders of Cambodia's Khmer Rouge regime face a verdict on Friday, November the 16th, on genocide charges in a ruling that experts say will bring down the curtain on the troubled UN-backed tribunal's quest for justice. The Khmer Rouge's former head of state, Khieu Samphan, 87, and brother number 2, Nuon Chea, 92, are the two most senior living members of the ultra-Maoist group that seized control of Cambodia from 1975 to 1979. Let's see. Hang on a second here. I need to... No, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is this right here. Yeah. Alright. Yeah. The reign of terror led by brother number 1, Pol Pot, left around 2 million Cambodians dead from overwork, starvation, and mass executions. The two defendants were previously handed life sentences in 2014 over the violent and forced evacuation of Phnom Penh in April 1975. But Friday's judgment at the Extraordinary Chambers in the Courts of Cambodia, ECCC, will decide whether the pair are guilty of overseeing genocide against ethnic Vietnamese and the Cham Muslim minority, as well as a host of other crimes. David Sheffer, who served as the UN Secretary General's special expert on the Khmer Rouge trials from 2012 until last month, said, quote, "The verdict is essentially the Nuremberg judgment for the ECCC and thus carries very significant weight for Cambodia, international criminal justice, and the annals of history," end quote. This goes on. It's pretty interesting. Very historic thing happening. And so there will, of course, be a link to this in the video description as well. And let's see then. Yes. So I have one more article here. And before I bring in anybody, this is from Rolling Stone. And before I read it, I'm going to have a sip of my Pepsi here. Try and get my throat to stop freaking out. This is by Matt Taibbi. One of the few actual journalists worthy of the name. I think I mentioned him earlier. Yeah, I did. Yeah, he does occasionally allow some of his bias to get in the way, but he's not a partisan hack, and he's not a propagandist. He's an actual journalist. Have quite a bit of respect for Matt Taibbi. He's not exactly John Pilger or Edward R. Murrow or Julian Assange, but he's a pretty good guy, I'd say. So this is from, let's see, when was this published? don't see a date for it. I'm not seeing a date. Nope, I don't see a date. Wait. No, that's not a date. Oh, there we go. November the 15th. So yesterday. It says, Trump's defense spending is out of control and poised to get worse. Using a time-honored trick, a bipartisan congressional panel argues we should boost the president's record defense bill even more. Oh, jeez. So, I mean, like, the increase alone that was approved earlier this year by the legislature was more than Russia spends in an entire year on its military budget. Just the increase alone, not counting the amount that we were already spending before the increase was added on top of it. And the amount that we were already spending was more than the next 7 countries combined, including Russia and China. You know. So, I mean, and it's ludicrous to continue to refer to it as a defense budget, because the United States hasn't been in a defensive war since the end of World War II. Let's just start calling it what it really is, a war budget. Because that's what it is. It's a neoconservative, interventionist, imperialist attempt to stave off the economic depression or recession, which is going to come as a result of neoliberal economics. If we don't stop it in time. I mean, right now we still have some of the precautionary measures in place, which were put there after the first Great Depression, during the administration of Franklin Roosevelt and subsequent administrations up till Ronald Reagan took office as president in 1981, at which point in time an attempt to undo all of that, as well as all the regulations which were reintroduced after the stock market crash and the beginning of the Great Depression, which didn't start until FDR took office, because Herbert Hoover was an obstinate prick who wouldn't listen to anyone who tried to get him to do something which might have actually kind of ameliorated some of the initial effects of the Great Depression, and instead he went further right, which only made things worse. So yeah, let me look at this article now. I probably won't read all of it because, like I said earlier, Matt Taibbi's articles and Rolling Stone articles in general tend to be rather long by today's standards for journalism, if you can call most of the dreck that comes out of the mainstream media journalism. But this is Rolling Stone, which has included such notable figures as Carl Bernstein, who blew the lid off of the Operation Mockingbird shit. That was CIA collusion with the media, especially the Washington Post. Matt Taibbi himself, Hunter S. Thompson, a number of... Anyway, to read. A bipartisan commission has determined that President Trump's recent record defense bill is insufficiently massive to keep America safe, and we should spend more while cutting, quote, entitlements, end quote. The National Defense Strategy Commission concluded the Department of Defense was too focused on efficiency and needed to accept greater cost and risk to search for leap-ahead technologies to help the U.S. maintain superiority. The panel added that defense is, quote, not where most of the money is, end quote. It said Congress should be focused on, quote, domestic entitlement programs, end quote, and, quote, interest payments on the national debt, end quote, as sources of savings. Now, I'm going to stop reading at this point for a moment in order to correct these idiots. The United States is a sovereign currency issuer. What that means is that we have a fiat currency. What that means is that there is absolutely nothing backing our currency. We don't have a gold standard anymore. Nixon took us off it completely in the 70s. We were already moving away from it since 1913 when Congress established the Federal Reserve System. We issue our own currency. The currency issuer cannot go into debt. I mean, you can sure borrow stuff, but there's no need for it. You issue your own currency. It's worth whatever you say it is. You know why? A lot of people talk about inflating the currency. That's the only thing inflation actually means. There was a time when our currency was backed by gold, and inflating the currency necessarily meant inflating prices, causing cost of living to go up and so forth. That is no longer the case, and the reason it was the case then is because you have X amount of gold in Fort Knox that's supposed to back up your dollars. If you print more dollars, then each dollar is worth less of that amount of gold than it was before you printed more. What you've done basically is made each dollar represent a smaller piece of the pie that sits in Fort Knox. Okay? Gold doesn't back our money anymore. Nothing does. There is no real commodity, no physical commodity, no actual commodity that backs our money. And frankly, issuing currency has little to do with printing banknotes or minting coins. Issuing currency in today's world, in modern money, means moving ones and zeros around across the internet from one bank account to another, and that's it. Money comes into existence when Congress spends it into existence. Now people are going to go, oh, so you just want to print a bunch of money? No, it doesn't fucking have anything to do with printing money. We have a credit system now, more than a money system. More people engage in trade by using credit cards, and no actual greenbacks ever see the light of day. You put your credit card number in to a website, or scan your card through a card reader or whatever, and no actual physical money changes hands. What happens is there's a debit from your account that goes into the account of the business you've just done business with. That's it. So you don't even actually have to print any more bills. You don't have to mint any more coins. You just move ones and zeros around from one account to another through the internet. That's what modern money is. There's no physical commodity backing it. Not oil, not the petrodollar is bullshit. That just means that people agreed to trade petroleum in dollars, US dollars. Doesn't mean that petroleum backs the US dollar, because it doesn't. There's no gold backing the dollar, no silver, no anything. Gross domestic product means nothing except how well the wealthiest are doing in terms of increasing their accumulation of wealth. Wall Street, Dow Index, and all that stuff. Again, that has nothing to do with how well the economy is performing. So all these idiots, talking heads on the television news that talk about the economy is booming because the Dow finished at a record high, but fuck them. You know what measures how well the economy is doing? GPI, not GDP. GPI, Genuine Progress Indicator. It tells you how well the average person is doing economically. But as far as we've got to cut entitlements so we can blow more money blowing up more people across the world. No, actually we don't, because the United States government is a sovereign currency issuer. You don't need taxes. You don't need borrowing. You issue your own fucking currency. It's worth whatever you say it is. And no, again, Weimar Republic printed a bunch of money and it became worthless? Yeah, because their money was backed by physical commodities, grain and coal and tin and I don't know what all now, but they had a variety of different physical items that were supposed to be the basis of their money. Their money was worth a certain amount of these various things. At one point in time, the United States dollar was worth a certain amount of gold. This is not the case anymore. The only reason we are taxed is so that we will impute value to the currency, because we have to pay our taxes in that currency. And if we believe that we have to, if we believe that that currency has value, and it obviously does because we're taxed and we have to pay our taxes in that currency, then we impute value to it. As far as borrowing, the United States government doesn't have to borrow shit from anybody. They can print up as much goddamn money as they want, and they don't even have to print it. They don't even have to mint it. This is called modern monetary theory. It's the only economic perspective which takes account of the reality of our situation today. All these other economic theories are based on outdated situations, like, for example, having a currency backed by a physical commodity. Who does that anymore? Nobody. So, in fact, the war budget is not an excuse to cut social spending, and vice versa. But frankly, why do we have to do all this war shit? What exactly is going on in the Middle East that we've got to go over there and wave our dicks around in everybody's faces? Seriously. We need more oil. No, we don't. For fuck's sake, we're destroying the planet left and right, all over the place. We've got 12 years before climate change is irreversible, at least for quite some length of time. So why do we need more petroleum and more natural gas? Right now, if the United States government were to stop subsidizing the petroleum industry, it would cost less to make electricity from solar and wind power than it does by burning fossil fuels. Okay, so what are you going to do about all the internal combustion engines? I mean, there are other things you can use besides petroleum, right? There's ethanol. There is diesel made from hemp seed, I mean. I think I read somewhere like last week about an automobile that runs on hydrogen. Of course, we've got the Tesla, these various electric automobiles, and, they've got their challenges, but apparently they're not quite as challenging as we've been led to believe, since the Tesla Corporation was able to extend the battery life of certain vehicles during a crisis. I think it was one of the wildfire things going on. How were they able to do that remotely? Batteries must have more capacity than they want us to realize. But, yes, back to the article. Sorry. I mean, I have to respond to this because there are some, and I don't know what Matt Taibbi is going to say about it, but yeah, modern monetary theory is not something a lot of people know about, but more people are learning. So, the report even contains a graph that shows defense spending crawling sadly along the floor of the spinning x-axis as mighty mandatory entitlements soar to great heights. This is the same Department of Defense with a serious existing accounting problem in 2016 before Trump was elected. Its Inspector General said he could not properly track $6.5 trillion in defense spending. A later academic study claimed the number was $21 trillion, looking at the years 1998 to 2015. And I just told you about them failing their first ever extensive audit. Trump originally asked for over $730 billion in defense spending for fiscal year 2019, and last spring a budget setting spending at $716 billion passed 85-10 in the Senate. This would have meant an $82 billion spending hike, an increase that by itself was larger than the entire defense budget of every country on earth save China. What'd I tell you? Trump later called for an across-the-board budget cut of 5%, leaving the amount of the defense budget in confusion. He still claims he wants $700 billion. Whatever the final amount turns out to be, it will be massive, about 10 times the size of Russia's defense budget and 4 times the size of China's. Anyway, this article does go on. Several more paragraphs. It's not quite as long as some of the articles I've seen by Matt Taibbi, but it's not a short article. By most people's standards, by my standards, it's pretty short. But then again, I do hold the record for writing the longest post ever in the history of the fora at a particular gaming company some years ago. That came to be 24 pages, double-spaced WordPad. I think that was right, 24. It might have been 27. I've forgotten now. I have that somewhere in a WordPad document. Anyway. So, this wraps up my news for the evening, and I'm going to go ahead and pull a couple of people in here. Let's see, I see Ryan is sitting out there patiently waiting. Where the hell is the... Yeah, there we go. Move to streaming, and Union Aerospace also moved to streaming. Hello. Hi. Ahoy. Well, I interrupted you. I interrupted you to drag you in here, huh? Oh, did they do that in World of Warcraft? Really? That's the Death Knights, you mean, right? Oh my God, why?
Story of another game. The Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast, when it's localized in Korea, they replaced Mizuruki, who was depicted as a Japanese samurai, with a white guy named Arthur.
Huh?
Yes, and of course, like, the reason behind that is because, like, the reason they gave it is because of this brutal history that Korea had with Japan.
Wow.
And no, that includes World War II, and I'm also got thinking about, like, the exposed bones, like, well, during World War II, it's actually, like, it's well known that the Japanese military were very brutal, were very barbaric in torturing their prisoners. That includes, like, Chinese and Korean citizens. And one of the methods of torture they did was they actually tied the prisoners down to the ground, and they take a knife and scrape all the flesh
Oh,
off
goodness.
off like their arms or legs.
Yeah, okay.
While they're still alive, and they left them there to die from exposure. Like until they get scrape off all the flesh until there's nothing but bone left.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that's very good. That I'm thinking.
So you think this is why they removed that from the game?
Yes, because actually my doctor showed me like some like freaky pictures of it, and after like was so shocked about it, I did some thinking and realized that kind of looks sort of like the undead characters from World of Warcraft. And when I heard about their Chinese localization, I kind of like put two together. And
I mean, I doubt they banned skeletons just to piss off the Japanese.
Yeah, probably not.
Even that's hilarious. That's the idea would be.
I know, but it's kind of like the balance between do we kind of like the balance about we don't want censorship, but at the same time is it kind of like being culturally insensitive or kind of like marginalizing or minimizing what happened, because well, to be fair, when you think about post World War II in Western media, they seem to minimize Japan's role and the atrocities that happened during World War II. They seem to minimalize it. So, and of course,
but really, what does World of Warcraft have to do with World War II? I mean, come on.
Well, I'm thinking also another thing about Blizzard is that the Chinese actually complained about the Pandarans because they were in samurai armor.
But the issue is not only the skeletons. Every single depiction of death in Diablo is gonna be removed. Even the witch doctor is gonna... The witch doctor is gonna be also away because apparently it's banned by the Chinese Communist Party.
I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm not saying it's smart or right. I'm just saying kind of their reasoning behind it, because
yeah, probably maybe that's it, maybe not. I don't exactly know, but
I'm just saying I saw after seeing those freaky images taken from Nanking.
Yeah.
And after spending that time being gross, being disgusted and freaked out, I started thinking and realized there is an uncanny similarity with how the undead characters are shown in World of Warcraft, with the exposed bones on their limbs,
Yep.
So, and part of me think that maybe that's not maybe that's seeing that China wants World of Warcraft to remove the exposed bones on the undead. And that is maybe not a coincidence.
Maybe. All right.
So maybe.
what else has been going on for you guys?
Well, what else was going on? You mean? Well, besides of talking that, I didn't do much myself. Besides of being alive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still alive. I didn't turn into a spooky ghost because of Halloween,
Right.
Although it would have been hilarious, because I'd be showing up in every single podcast and be like,
You guys, come on. So, yeah. And you would have gotten away with it, too, if it weren't for us pesky kids and our meddling dog, right?
Yeah, well, besides of that, I've had to deal with the rising of the resurgence of what I call the Undertale phenomenon, because apparently Toby Fox is making a new game.
Oh, yeah, I heard something about that.
Deltarune.
Huh?
That's the new project called. Finished chapter 1, apparently. A demo of 2 hours.
Well.
Goodness gracious! What a long demo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, are you still in school then?
Still in college, but
Right.
yeah, still in college for like a year more, and then I'm gone after that. Probably have to do a bit with a higher degree after, but yeah.
Yeah. So, you get any kind of you get any kind of holiday off in November, October, anything?
We didn't do much in November or anything except for, well, besides celebrate the Day of the Dead, as we call it here.
Right. Yeah. So you have
Day of all the Dead.
La Dia de los Muertos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have this in Hispanic, in Latin America as well, and some of the Latino and Latina people here in the United States also celebrate that.
We call it a bit something else. We call it the Dia de Todos los Santos, which is the Day of All the Saints.
Day of All Saints, right?
Yes, but yeah, we occasionally had to deal with kids trick or treating around, you know.
Oh, you do have trick or treating?
We used to have trick or treaters around here sometimes. Since we do not have treats, we have to give them some money, and for them to buy their sweets. Mostly because due to the fact that I'm in a bit of a diet right now, I cannot afford to eat a lot of sweets lately. So.
Right.
Hey, I'm not being I'm not saying I'm a fat ass or anything. No, not like that. Just that I need to regulate my stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I left Coca-Cola entirely. I'm not missing it whatsoever.
You missed cola?
No, I do not miss it whatsoever. I left it out of the way, and I'm like, yeah, fuck that.
So you don't have cola anymore? You don't drink cola anymore?
Nah, only when I go to the cinema, which is rarely. Because going to the cinema without anything is boring.
Yeah.
And when I go with friends outside, but that's also rarely, not because I don't go out a lot, because I have to check my stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm sorry for having interrupted or anything. But
no, we don't have a lot of trick-or-treaters come around out here where I live. I don't think anyone has trick-or-treated here since my parents and I first moved here like 40 years ago. But, when I lived in Houston growing up, there was some trick-or-treating that happened around our neighborhood. And I think, everybody knew everybody there anyway, so it was okay. But,
but I was going to ask you a thing. I've seen that apparently you've had a bit of an argument with Paul Krugman.
Who? Oh, Paul Krugman. That fuck? No, I don't. Did he reply to me? I don't think he did.
No, not sure. I'm not sure, but apparently I was calling an argument because you were calling in basically.
Yeah, he is a hack. He's a fucking idiot.
Oh, but he's that much of a hack, is he?
I mean, he's this guy who is essentially a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, and he has constantly promoted the neoliberal economic policies of the Democratic Party and pretended that they're not the exact same fucking shit that Ronald Reagan started and every Republican since then has pushed as well. And I guess it was the end of 2016, he kind of admitted he'd been wrong without actually admitting he'd been wrong. It was kind of like, neoliberalism might not be the best thing in the world after all. But he didn't admit that, he kind of said it without saying it, so he didn't have to,
so,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He wanted to save face.
So basically, he was a hardcore neoliberal at first, and then he swung to the other side.
I don't think he swung really. I think he kind of admitted it without admitting it, and is still kind of pushing the same shit. Even though he knows it's not really all that.
Well, maybe how you call it. I'll check it out, and I'll probably be giving you the right point, because usually you're not wrong at this stuff. Usually.
I mean, I've got a bunch of articles I've saved over the past 3 or 4 years talking about neoliberalism, and Paul Krugman is a guy who writes for the New York Times. He is, as so many right-wingers say, a Nobel Prize-winning economist. And I'm like, yeah, and he's still a fucking idiot, because neoliberalism is shit. It's corporatism. You know, the only difference between fascism and neoliberalism, the only meaningful difference, is that fascism, in fascism, the state retains the upper hand over the corporations, and in neoliberalism, the state becomes a servant to the corporations. Now, there's a rhetorical difference as well, where the fascists talk about being nationalists, but then they usually wind up invading neighboring countries and engaging in imperialism, so there is kind of a, if not globalist, then more than nationalist perspective to it, whereas the neoliberals are openly globalist.
Well, at least, and the only point I'm willing to concede to him is he has at least more integrity than a lot of people I've met on the internet.
I don't know, because like I said, he didn't really admit that he was wrong. That's the thing. He kind of him-hawed around it in such a way that he kind of said, but didn't really say. It's like he knows it's not really going to work, but he's still going to push it anyway, and he's damn sure not going to admit he was wrong, because, you know, that would be deflating his overly inflated ego.
I mean, you expect, I don't think in 2018 anyone's going to be taking self-criticism at that. I'm really sorry, but like the whole experience of 2018 has left me very cynical. I'm the only one who's apparently willing to take self-criticism at value.
Well,
go on.
I generally don't like to talk about something unless I know a fair amount about it, which is how I avoid being wrong. If I know what I'm talking about, then I can talk about it, and if I don't, then I either have to go and do a bunch of research before I start talking about it, or I don't talk about it at all. So this is one of the reasons that I don't come out with videos very often, apart from these live streams nowadays, because it takes quite a bit of work to gather up these articles and prepare a show, find a thumbnail and a background image that is in the public domain, or I can use through Creative Commons licensing or something like that, and come up with a title. And, you know, because I like to give my titles, my show's titles based on some reference, usually a little bit obscure, to some kind of political stuff that happened in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, maybe a little bit in the 80s. I did one from this century a few weeks ago when I did the PNAC gasoline over 1 million slain. But yeah, I talk, you know, like references to CIA code names for operations and an image somewhat related to that, or, you know, a reference to like Richard Nixon and some of the scandals he was involved in, or Lyndon Johnson and some of his. I mean, Lyndon Johnson was one of the most corrupt presidents we've ever had, and I don't think even Nixon or Trump can hold a candle to that guy. He was never mind. I don't want to get sued. But yeah,
it's fine. That's fine. I get what you mean. Don't worry. But it's strange. I mean, it's strange to live in a timeline in which not even the PR of big corporations is willing to make PR. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's always the fault of the customer now, right?
I mean, No, you know what? Never mind. I was gonna say what happened, but I know what fucking happened. It's redundant to ask what happened.
Yeah.
It's fucking redundant at this point. It's
Well,
fucking redundant, and it makes me fucking sick.
You guys know the whole spiel of the gaming companies that want to blame the customers for their own fuck-ups instead of admitting that they fucked up, right?
You're uneducated!
Yeah.
You're uneducated, and apparently the guy who said that in EA left the company, so... So, you know what? Good fucking riddance.
Yeah, really.
Because apparently our suspicions of Battlefield 5 were confirmed true once they released. The game is a shit show. Not only for the things, because they finally released the war stories, which are the single player things, right?
Right.
So there was a unit called the Special Board Service, which is basically the Britain's response to the occupation of Europe by the Nazis, right? You know what it consisted basically? Get people inside, fuck shit up, get out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, your average commando stuff, right?
Right.
Which was founded by this. A British admiral who wanted to make the unit was denied one time after the other. You know what he did? He infiltrated one of the most secure battleships of the Royal Navy and managed to get inside the command room of the battleship. While the captain of the ship was like, "What the fuck are you doing here? How did you get here?" Which apparently impressed him. It impressed the Admiralty, and they finally allowed him to found the unit, the Special Board Service. Guess how EA portrayed it?
How?
A unit of convicts.
Convicts, huh?
A unit of criminal convicts.
So it's like
miserable.
It's like the Dirty Dozen. Then.
The Dirty Dozen?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking revisionism. What they've engaged into. It wasn't made by fucking convicts who were court-martialed. The cherry on top is that all of the criminals are white.
Yeah.
Of fucking course. So.
Criminals in military service. Like, have you heard about the French Foreign Legion?
I mean, I can understand it in the case of the French Foreign Legion.
Prisoners, like, I know, like, as something more expendable. Like.
Exactly, but not like that. The founding of the SBS was not because of grabbing a criminal from the fucking prison and tell him, form a unit. No, that's not it. That's not fucking it. And not only that, EA decided to portray the Senegalese troops in France, which personally I find it cool, right? Because we didn't see them a lot in a lot of games. But EA being EA, they couldn't help themselves. They couldn't help themselves portraying the white French as cowards and surrender cheese-eating monkeys, while the Senegalese are the only ones fighting.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, EA.
I mean, wasn't this supposed to be kind of historically accurate in the beginning, and then they kind of threw that out the window?
I mean, we can agree that they threw it out the window with the cyborg lady.
You need to I'm pretty sure. Actually, when I think about it, I'm pretty sure, like, prosthetics were around since the turn of the century. Like, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that the prosthetic didn't allow you to shoot, you know?
Yeah.
That's the issue. Prosthetic, it's not that advanced. It doesn't allow you to move fingers.
I know, but I can probably imagine you could actually easily pull a trigger with a hook hand if you just move your arm back, like.
It's still bloody ridiculous if you think about it.
I know. But
it's still bloody ridiculous.
Say, what's your opinion on the movie The Inglourious Bastard?
Inglourious Bastard. So, I went in with that movie because there's a difference between some, how do you call it, over-exaggeration and plain ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I went with it, and I told you. Sorry for interrupting you, but I need to tell you this. Quentin Tarantino is amazing is amazing at making movies and makes movies without shoehorning politics in his movie.
Yeah, like I'm just going to point out that if it's the whole that story about the Glorious Bastards never really happened, because with history we know that Hitler didn't die in a burning theater due to two separate plots of trying to kill him.
I mean, that would have been a hilarious thing.
Shot up in an exploding theater because there's two separate plots of killing him, two unrelated plots.
I mean, that would have been a hilarious way to end World War II, but real life isn't that hilarious.
I know, but I'm just saying, it's pretty much some of the accusations of them changing history could also apply to a whole lot of other things. And I mean, of course, in their defense, when playing a game, players should expect some level of player agency and controlling the outcome of the story, in a good game,
Yeah,
so
but
cannot be 100% historically accurate,
Yeah, I know, but the main difference is that Quentin Tarantino at least never claimed it to be historically accurate. Well, EA did.
Yeah.
And then we got this.
Yeah.
That's the main issue.
But did they actually said that, or did they just people assumed because their past games were
They initially claimed it was going to be historically accurate, and then the trailer came, and then they did a 180, as we like to call it, and then the design director of DICE coming with his right side of history spiel stick, you know. And then Patrick Sutherland with his uneducated comment.
Yeah.
And that's about it. What was I gonna say more about Battlefield 5 before moving on? The third war story, which is apparently the Norwegian trying to sabotage our German heavy water facility, right? Well, fuck. I didn't know that the entire Norwegian resistance effort was made by one single woman. You know what I mean? One single woman laying waste to an entire heavy water facility.
Goodness.
Yeah, if I wanted that, I'd play Wolfenstein, you know?
Mm-hmm.
At least that game doesn't try to be historically accurate in that regard. And at least in Wolfenstein, you can disregard it as the rule of cool, as we like to call it.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, game is a shit show. EA has learned nothing, and they will not learn anything from it. Can you believe that there's even less tanks? There's less tanks than in Battlefield 1.
Gosh, yeah.
Okay, World War II, lack of tanks? Really, dudes? Apparently everything was done by infantry lately.
I guess, yeah.
I guess so, because... And, well, what else can I say about it, really? Well, you know what? Topic's closed. Moving on, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
Moving on. Ace shit. Moving on.
So anyway, I'm going to have to go ahead and end the stream at this point. YouTube Saints have started their stream about a minute or two ago. They started, the pre-show music stuff about 5-6 minutes ago. But this is a pre-show for theirs. Yeah. So for everybody who has been watching, is watching, or will watch later on, let me say, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Click the bell icon next to the subscribe button to be notified of all new content. Please also consider sharing the video on your social media. I do have a Discord server for my subscribers called Lives, Live Streams, and Vids, and you may find the link in the video description if you'd like to join. The video description has been updated with all relevant links from the articles I read. I think I've got them all there. Let me make sure. I want to make sure that I have that link to the tweeted video by MJ, because that was a pretty cool little thing where Stan Lee was talking. Let's see. Yeah, I've got it. Okay, cool. And so, let's see. If you like what I do here on YouTube and or at the Progressive Flame, goodness. If you like what I do here on YouTube and or at the